What's up, everybody? It's Maddox, aka Velocituber, and today I'm back with another exciting and thrilling video. Today, I'm telling y'all my top 5 roller coasters at Hershey Park, and the number 1 might surprise you, so stick around for the end. I will be judging these coasters off of my favorite aspect of a coaster, airtime, also intensity, thrillingness, if it's boring or not, if it has a launch, and the theming around it. So basically everything that makes a good roller coaster a great roller coaster. Just so you know, before we get started, you should like, subscribe, share, and comment on this video so the YouTube algorithm doesn't screw me over. And when I'm recording this, I have 39 subscribers, so let's get to 40. Also, check out my Nickelodeon Universe and Six Flags Great Adventure vlogs because those ones are really cool. Let's get started, and drum roll please for my number 5. It is Fahrenheit. This ride is absolutely crazy. I had 2 rides on this roller coaster this summer, one in the front row and one in the very back row, and I can say all of the seats on this ride will give an excellent ride experience. No one talks about that Norwegian loop because it is crazy underrated. I was graying out practically the entire ride, and the back row on the Beyond Vertical Drop and the Airtime Hill are crazy because you get so much ejector and whip. This ride is all about ripping your face off. We had to rope drop this ride both times because this gets such a long line, especially during the summer. It had about a 40-minute line, and I did not feel like waiting in that. I would rather walk about 20 more steps to get to Wildcat's Revenge than ride this, because Wildcat's Revenge's line is always a lot more manageable. And let's move to our next roller coaster, and this one is Storm Runner at Hershey Park. I cannot explain to you guys how intense this launch is. This was my first ever hydraulic launch roller coaster, and I was not expecting that to launch the guts out of me. They were only running 1 train on this ride because the parts weren't there on time, so I only got 2 rides on this because the line was unbearably long, but I will say I waited about 30 minutes for it both times, and it was definitely worth the wait. This ride is crazy. I will say the one downside to it is a little shaky in the valleys, but I can overpass that because it doesn't have the hard Intamin over the shoulder restraints. And that snake dive roll, whatever it's called, is wild because it's at the exact same speed as the Mosasaurus roll on Velocicoaster, which is my favorite roller coaster, but higher in the air, and it's just crazy. You hit the brake run with so much speed, and you're doing that little whippy bank to the side, bank to the left thing, and it is honestly really fun. I will say you should head to Hershey Park soon to ride this because the Intamin Accelerator model is a dying breed, and we don't know how much longer this is going to be around, but I would say because Hershey Park loves their Intamins and has a great relationship with them, I think this has many more years to go. And they wouldn't pull a King Caw and announce its closure when it was already closed. But anyways, moving on to the number 3 spot is Candemonium. And I can't tell you how fun this ride is because I just rode this with my little brother and he was finally riding roller coasters after 3 years of trying to get him to ride this. And it was just so fun watching him go over those floater hills and laughing and kind of crying at the same time. This is just such a fun ride for me, and it has so much sentimental value to me. And at first, I thought it was one of the lower tier B&M hypers, but then I rode it more and more and more and more, and then I realized how great of a hyper this was. Overall, I think Candemonium has some really great parts, and one part I don't think people talk about a lot is that twist right into that mid-course brake run. It actually provides some decent laterals and some pretty good airtime. I don't know why, I just never really expected that to give me airtime, but it did. And that turn right before the final brake run is actually pretty forceful. Also, you can't sleep on a ride in the front row because all of that wind in your face at 70 miles an hour definitely gets you. Moving on to number 2 in the park is Sky Rush. I can't tell you how crazy this ride is. When you just blast up to the top from that cable lift, and when you even go down that drop is wild. The drop gives massive ejector, and those 2 speed hills / camelbacks give negative 2 Gs of airtime. That's the maximum amount of airtime a roller coaster can have in the United States. So that's how you know the person who built this ride is an absolute maniac. I will say, this ride can be a little bumpy at times, especially when you sit in the back row, but I still had a very fun experience. The only thing that's not fun, though, is when those lap bars come crushing down on your thighs after you hit the brake run. Because they don't release the lap bars until a little bit after you hit the brake run, you can just feel the blood stop rushing into your legs. And it's not very pleasant, but what is pleasant is that fun ride experience. Unfortunately, the second day I was at Hershey Park, this ride was closed all day, and I couldn't get a third ride on it. But those 2 rides I got were very fun. So now it's time to move to our number 1 spot of this ranking. Can I get a drum roll, please, for the blatantly obvious best roller coaster in Hershey Park? And it is Coco Cruiser! Now, this ride just gives excellent airtime, and you get ejected out of your seat. No, I'm just kidding. The best ride in this park is Wildcat's Revenge, an RMC hybrid conversion of Wildcat. I never got to ride Wildcat, but I've heard that it was not the best wooden coaster. And I'm glad that Hershey Park listened to the enthusiast and RMC'd it. I think this is my favorite RMC pre-lift because it's just so flowy and you're just cascading down 3 hills. I underestimated how fun it was, and you gain a lot of speed before you get into that lift hill. And no one talks about that epic drop. And many people think this might be the best RMC in the world. I don't agree with that. Of course, I think Air Force One is the best RMC in the world, if you saw that short that I made. But as you go into the world's tallest step-up underflip, and then you go into this insane camelback that gives loads of ejector airtime. And the first time I rode this, the 2 wave turns were pretty underwhelming to me, but then I got used to them, and then I felt major sideways airtime and ejector. And then you go into this little step up and lateral turn. I didn't really like that. I thought it was pretty uncomfortable. And then the rest of the ride is pretty much 2 0G rolls, and then you do some turns and twists, and then you go into this fairly uncomfortable turn into the brake run. And that ends your experience on Wildcat's Revenge, the best roller coaster at Hershey Park. And this ride is just so great. That's why it's number 1 at Hershey Park. Remember, like, subscribe, share, comment on this video so I can make more, and I'll see you next time. This was Velocituber. Bye, guys.
Scuba, 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 scuba.